Clara Bennett's hands shook as the preacher's words echoed through the chapel, words that would chain her to a monster. Jackson Pike stood 7 feet tall beside her, a mountain of a man they called Bullpike, and tonight he would claim what her uncle's drunken card game had sold her: body, her future, everything. The guests whispered their pity. Her uncle wouldn't meet her eyes, and when Jackson's massive hand closed around hers, she felt the weight of a fate worse than death itself. Before we continue, please subscribe to our channel and stay until the very end of this incredible story. Comment below what city you're watching from. I want to see how far Clara's courage can reach across the world. The chapel door slammed behind them. Clara stood at the altar in her mother's wedding dress, too loose now. She'd lost weight this past month, and counted the faces staring back at her. 23 people. 23 witnesses to her humiliation. Jackson Pike filled the space beside her like God fills heaven. 7 feet of muscle and legend. They called him Bullpike for breaking a man's jaw over a card game, for carrying a full-grown steer on his shoulders, for things whispered but never confirmed. And now he owned her. "Dearly beloved," the preacher began. "Get on with it," Jackson said. The preacher's voice cracked. "We are gathered here, the vows, just the vows." Clara's stomach twisted. He couldn't even pretend this was anything but a transaction. 3 days ago, Uncle Raymond had stumbled home reeking of bourbon and failure. He'd grabbed her arms hard enough to bruise. "You gotta marry him, Clara." "Who?" "Pike. Jackson Pike. I lost the ranch to him. Cards. But he said he'd tear up the deed if you marry him." She'd laughed. Actually laughed, because the alternative was screaming. "I won't. You will, or everything your parents built dies with me. You want that. You want your mama's grave sitting on land owned by some stranger. You want—" "Stop. It's your duty, girl. Your mama did her duty. Your papa did his. Now it's your turn." Duty. That word had haunted the Bennett family for 3 generations. "Do you, Clara Louise Bennett, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Every eye in the chapel burned into her back. She heard Mrs. Patterson whispering to her daughter, heard the saloon girls giggling behind their hands, heard Uncle Raymond's labored breathing from the front pew. "I do." The words tasted like ashes. Jackson's voice came next, deep enough to shake the floorboards. "I do. You may kiss the bride." Clara turned, tilted her head back so far her neck screamed. Jackson Pike looked down at her with eyes the color of a winter sky, and she saw nothing in them. No warmth, no desire, nothing. He leaned down. She closed her eyes. His lips brushed her forehead. That was all. The chapel erupted in applause that sounded more like relief than joy. "Mrs. Pike," Jackson said quietly. The name belonged to someone else. Someone braver, someone who'd chosen this. The reception at the Broken Wheel Saloon was worse. Clara sat at a corner table while Jackson stood at the bar accepting congratulations from men who thought the whole thing was hilarious. "Finally found a woman who can't run away, eh, Pike? She's so small you'll snap her like a twig. Gonna need a ladder just to—" "That's enough." Jackson's voice cut through the laughter like an axe through bone. The room went silent. He set down his whiskey and walked toward the men. The crowd parted. Jackson stopped in front of Garrett, a ranch hand who'd been laughing the loudest. "Apologize to my wife." Garrett's smile died. "Pike, I was just—" "Now." One word, no anger in it, no threat, just certainty. Garrett swallowed. "Sorry, Mrs. Pike. Meant no disrespect." Clara nodded, because what else could she do? Jackson returned to the bar. The party continued in hushed tones, but the mocking had stopped. Uncle Raymond appeared at her elbow, bourbon on his breath. "See, he's a good man, Clara. Protective. That's good in a husband." "He's not my husband," she hissed. "He's my jailer." "Don't say that. Don't." Raymond's voice broke. "Your mama would be so ashamed of me." "Yes," Clara said. "She would." She left him crying into his drink and walked outside into the cold October air. The stars were sharp as broken glass. She stood there shivering until Jackson's shadow fell over her. "It's time," he said. "Time." The word hung between them like an execution date. 2 horses waited at the hitching post, Jackson's massive black stallion and a smaller mare. He helped her mount with hands that could crush her skull, but moved gentle as prayer. They rode north out of Silver Ridge in silence. The Pike Ranch appeared after 5 miles. A large house, sturdy and square, smoke curling from the chimney. Clara had never been here before. No one came to Pike's ranch unless invited, and Pike never invited anyone. Jackson dismounted and lifted her down. His hands circled her waist completely. For a heartbeat, she was suspended between earth and sky, utterly at his mercy. He set her down and stepped back. "Barns there, chickens out back, wells by the kitchen, house has 4 rooms. You'll meet Tom tomorrow, he's my ranch hand. I expect you'll handle the cooking, I'm not good at it." Clara stared at him. Was he really giving her a tour? Now Jackson led both horses to the barn. "I'm not going to hurt you, Clara." The words should have been comforting. Instead, they terrified her because men who hurt women always said exactly that right before they did. Inside the house was simple, clean but cold. Everything built oversized to accommodate the giant who lived here. The bedroom sat at the end of a short hallway. Clara's heart hammered so hard she thought her ribs might crack. The bed was enormous. Had to be to fit Jackson Pike. He pulled a nightshirt from the wardrobe. "Sleep in this tonight. Your things come tomorrow." He handed it to her. It smelled like soap. "I'll give you privacy," Jackson said, moving toward the door. "Wait." Clara's voice barely worked. We're not." Jackson stopped, didn't turn around. "You're my wife. That's legal fact. But I don't take what isn't freely given. I'll never give it." Now he turned. His expression was impossible to read. "That's your choice. I can wait." "For what?" "For you to stop being afraid of me." He left, closed the door. Clara stood alone, holding a nightshirt that could wrap around her twice, and heard floorboards creak in the parlor. Heard a body settle on the couch. Heard a cough. He was sleeping out there. She changed quickly, fingers fumbling with buttons, climbed into the enormous bed, listened for his footsteps, for the door to open, for him to change his mind. Instead, silence. Clara lay in the darkness and felt something shift inside her chest. Not trust. Not yet, but maybe the first fragile possibility of it. Morning came with the smell of coffee and frying bacon. Clara woke confused, then remembered everything. She dressed in yesterday's clothes and walked to the kitchen. Jackson stood at the stove, his back to her, flipping bacon in a cast-iron skillet. He'd changed into work clothes, denim and cotton sleeves rolled up over forearms, thick as fence posts. "Sit," he said without turning. "Eggs. I can cook my own." "I know, but today you don't have to." He set a plate in front of her, more food than she normally ate in 2 days. They ate in silence. "You sleep all right?" Jackson asked. "Well enough." "Couch is too small. I'll build a bed for the spare room today." So this arrangement was permanent. Separate rooms, separate lives. "You don't have to," Clara said. "Can't keep sleeping on the couch. Bad for my back." "I meant—" She stopped. What did she mean? "This is your house, your bedroom. I should be the one to— You're my wife." Jackson set down his fork. "That makes it your house, too. Everything here is as much yours as mine, whether you want it or not." "I don't want it," she said quietly. "I don't want any of this." "I know." The simple acknowledgement disarmed her. "Why?" Clara asked suddenly. "Why did you do this? You could have just taken the ranch." "I didn't force anything." Jackson's voice hardened. "Your uncle came to me, begged me, said he'd do anything to keep the land. And he told me about you. Said you'd been running that ranch yourself since your father died. Said you had your mother's strength. Said you deserved better than losing everything because he couldn't stay away from cards. Clara's throat tightened. So you decided to buy me? No. I decided to offer you a choice your uncle had already taken away. Marry me and keep the land, or don't and lose it anyway. Jackson met her eyes. Either way, I didn't need that deed. I've got more land than I can use. That's not a choice. That's an ultimatum. Fair enough, but it's more than most women get in this territory. He was right. Damn him, he was right. You said you'd been watching me in town, Clara said. Why? Jackson looked uncomfortable. He picked up his coffee, set it down. You stood up to Jack Morrison last spring. Clara remembered. Morrison had tried to cheat Mrs. Chen at the general store. Clara had called him out loudly. Morrison had stepped close, looming, trying to intimidate her. She'd held her ground, told him being tall didn't make him right. He'd slunk away while the store laughed. You didn't back down, Jackson said now. Most people see a big man coming and step aside. You stepped forward. That takes courage. Or stupidity. Sometimes they're the same thing. Jackson stood and carried his plate to the wash basin. With his back to her, he said, I'm 43 years old, Clara. Spent most of my life alone because people are afraid of me. Can't blame them. But lately I've been thinking about what happens when I'm gone. Who gets this ranch? Who remembers I was here at all? He turned. Something raw flickered in his expression. I want a family, a wife, maybe children. I want to build something that lasts longer than me. When your uncle came with his problem, I saw an opportunity. Maybe not fair, maybe not one you'd have chosen, but an opportunity. For you, Clara said. What about what I wanted? You wanted to save your family's ranch. I'm giving you that. Before Clara could respond, wagon wheels crunched outside. Your things, Jackson said, and went to help unload. Tom met them in the yard. He was older, 60, maybe weathered face, kind eyes, and a jaw full of tobacco. Tom, this is Clara, my wife. Tom squinted at her, spat tobacco juice. Ma'am. Tom's been with me 8 years, Jackson said. He's good with cattle, better with horses. You need anything while I'm out on the range, you tell Tom. Tom helped carry her trunks inside. 2 trunks. That was all she owned now. Clothes, books, her mother's jewelry box, her father's rifle. By noon, everything was unpacked. Jackson stood in the parlor looking like a man who'd rather be anywhere else. I need to check the north pasture back before dark. You'll be all right here. I've been alone before. Right, well, food in the cellar, shotgun above the door if you need it, though you shouldn't. We don't get trouble out here. He left. Clara wandered the empty house, touching things that belonged to Jackson Pike, trying to understand the man who owned them. In the spare room, buried in a box of old papers, she found a photograph, a family portrait. A younger Jackson, 20 maybe, with a woman and 2 children. They looked happy. They died of fever. Clara spun. Jackson stood in the doorway. She hadn't heard him return. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't mean to. You're allowed. Jackson took the photograph from her hands. This was taken right before I left home. I was 22. Promised Ma I'd send money soon as I could. She died 3 months later. Fever took her, then Mary, then baby John, all while I was out here playing cowboy. It wasn't your fault. No, but I wasn't there. Jackson set the photograph back carefully. I swore I'd never let anything matter more than people again. But years passed and I didn't make any people to matter, so here I am, alone on a ranch that'll mean nothing when I'm dead. You're not alone anymore, Clara heard herself say. Jackson looked at her and something passed between them. Not affection, not yet, but understanding. No, he agreed. I suppose I'm not. They stood in the dusty room and Clara felt the first crack in her armor. I'll help you clear this space, she said. Might as well make use of it. Jackson nodded. Appreciate that. They worked in silence, sorting through years of accumulated belongings. It was mundane, domestic, the kind of thing married couples did. Clara tried not to think about that. An hour later, Tom appeared at the door. Boss, north pasture, fence is down, cattle drifting. Jackson's expression darkened. How bad? Bad, looks like someone cut it. Rustlers, don't know what else to think. Jackson transformed before Clara's eyes. The gentleman who'd spoken about his dead family disappeared. In his place stood the legend they called Bullpike. Get the rifles, Jackson said. Clara, stay in the house, bar the door. I can shoot, Clara said. Both men looked at her. Baishang, my father taught me. I'm not helpless. Jackson studied her. Tom, give her your spare pistol. Tom handed her a Colt revolver. Clara checked the chambers. All 6 loaded. Stay on the porch, Jackson said. Anyone comes near who isn't me or Tom, you shoot first and ask questions after. Clear, clear. Jackson stepped close. So close she had to tilt her head back. I mean it, Clara. Rustlers don't take kindly to being interrupted. Neither do I. Something flashed in his eyes, surprise, maybe approval. Then he and Tom were gone, riding hard toward the north pasture. Clara positioned herself on the porch, pistol in her lap, her father's rifle against the railing. The sun crawled across the sky. Hours passed. Then came gunfire from the north, sharp cracks echoing across the grassland. Shouting, more gunfire. Clara's grip tightened. Every instinct screamed at her to run toward the sound, but Jackson had told her to stay, so she stayed. The gunfire stopped. The shouting faded. Darkness fell. Clara sat on the porch of Pike Ranch, pistol in hand, and waited for the giant she'd married to come home, waited to see if she'd become a widow on her second day of marriage, waited to discover whether the flutter in her chest was fear or something far more dangerous. Full dark now. The valley swallowed all light except the stars and the lamp burning in the window behind her. Clara's hands ached from gripping the pistol. Her neck hurt from scanning the horizon, but she didn't move, didn't relax. Then hoofbeats. 2 horses coming fast. Clara stood, raised the pistol, aimed at the darkness. Clara, it's us. Jackson's voice. Thank God. They rode into the lamplight, Jackson and Tom both still in their saddles, both still breathing. Relief flooded through her so strong her knees almost buckled. But then she saw the blood on Jackson's sleeve. You're hurt, she said. Just a graze. Jackson dismounted, wincing. Rustlers got spooked and ran when Tom put a bullet through their leader's hat, but they cut near 30 feet of fence and scattered 24 head. We'll be chasing strays for a week. Tom spat tobacco juice and grinned. Boss here rode down one of them sons of sorry ma'am, rode him down and yanked him clean off his horse. Thought the man was gonna wet himself. Did you kill him? Clara asked. No, Jackson said. Scared him good, though. He'll think twice before coming back to Pikeland. He looked at Clara, then really looked at her, at the pistol in her hand, at how she stood planted on the porch like a soldier at her post. You stayed, Jackson said quietly. You told me to. Most women would have run or fainted or both. I'm not most women. Tom laughed outright at that. No, ma'am, you surely ain't. Pike, you got yourself a fighter. 'Bout damn time. Jackson's eyes never left Clara's face. Yeah, he said softly. I suppose I did. Something shifted between them in that moment, something Clara couldn't name but felt in her bones. This man had ridden into danger and come back bleeding, and she'd felt relief. Actual, genuine relief that he wasn't dead. When had that happened? When had the monster become a man she didn't want to lose? Come inside, Clara said, surprising herself. Let me clean that wound before it festers. Jackson hesitated. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. I'm choosing to. That word choosing hung in the night air between them. Jackson nodded once. All right then. Tom took the horses while Jackson followed Clara inside. In the kitchen, she pumped water and tore a clean cloth from her petticoat. Jackson sat at the table and rolled up his sleeve. The bullet had carved a groove through the meat of his upper arm, not deep, but ugly. "This'll sting," Clara warned. "I've had worse." She cleaned the wound with steady hands, trying to ignore how close she stood to him, how his breath stirred her hair, how warm his skin felt under her fingers. "You did good today," Jackson said quietly. "I sat on a porch. You held your ground. That's more than most people do when gunfire starts." He paused. "Thank you for staying, for not running." Clara tied off the bandage and stepped back. "Where would I run to? Anywhere, town. Your uncle's place. You could have left." "And break my word." Clara met his eyes. "I married you, Jackson Pike. Made a vow before God and 23 witnesses. I don't break my vows. Even vows you didn't want to make. Even those." Something moved behind Jackson's eyes, something that might have been hope or might have been longing. He stood and Clara had to tilt her head back to see his face. "I'm glad you're here," Jackson said. "I know you don't want to be, but I'm glad anyway." He left before she could respond. Clara stood alone in the kitchen, her hands still damp from cleaning his wound, and realized with absolute certainty that she was in terrible, terrible danger, not from Jackson Pike, but from her own treacherous heart that was starting to care whether he lived or died. That night, Clara dreamed of gunfire and blood on a giant sleeve. She woke before dawn to find Jackson already gone, his boots by the door still caked with yesterday's mud. The coffee pot sat warm on the stove with a note underneath written in surprisingly neat handwriting: "Out mending fence. Back by noon. Help yourself to breakfast." Clara poured coffee and stood at the kitchen window watching the sun paint the valley gold. Somewhere out there, Jackson Pike was fixing what rustlers had broken, probably without complaint, probably without expecting thanks. She thought about his wound, wondered if he'd changed the bandage. Probably not. Men. The door opened around 10, not Jackson, but Tom carrying a wooden crate. "Morning, ma'am, got some things for you from town." He set the crate on the table. "Boss asked me to fetch them yesterday before all the trouble started." Clara opened it. Inside were bolts of fabric, good quality cotton and wool, along with thread needles and a pattern book for dresses. "He remembered," she whispered. "Ma'am, at the wedding. I told him my dresses were all worn through. I didn't think he was listening." Tom grinned around his tobacco. "Boss listens to everything, just don't always show it." He headed for the door, then paused. "You're good for him, ma'am. Ain't seen him smile in 8 years. Yesterday, after you bandaged him up, he smiled all the way to the barn." He left before Clara could respond. She touched the fabric soft under her fingers and felt that dangerous flutter in her chest again. Jackson Pike was making it very hard to hate him. Noon came and went. 1 o'clock. 2. Clara paced the kitchen, glancing out the window every few minutes. The wound hadn't looked that bad, but infection could set in fast out here. She'd seen men die from less. At 2:30 hoofbeats, she practically ran to the porch. Jackson rode in alone, slumped in his saddle, his face gray as old ash. "Jesus," Clara breathed and ran to him. He nearly fell dismounting. She caught him, or tried to. He weighed twice what she did, but somehow she got her shoulder under his arm and half dragged him toward the house. "Fence," Jackson mumbled. "Got the fence mended." "Shut up about the fence. You're burning with fever." She got him inside onto the couch because the bedroom was too far. His shirt was soaked through with sweat. When she unbuttoned it, she saw the bandage on his arm had bled through the edges, yellow with pus. "God damn it, Jackson. Why didn't you come back sooner?" "Had to finish the fence. The fence isn't worth dying for. Everything's worth dying for if it protects what's mine." Clara's hands stilled. She looked at his face, fever bright and stubborn. "What's yours?" "You," Jackson said, and passed out. Clara's heart stopped, then started again too fast. She worked quickly, stripped off his shirt, cleaned the wound again properly this time, digging out bits of dirt that had gotten in when he'd been too stubborn to rest. He groaned, but didn't wake. She applied a poultice her mother had taught her to make yarrow and honey and whiskey, and wrapped it tight. Then she sat beside him and waited. Fever was tricky. It could break in hours or days, could kill a man Jackson's size just as dead as it killed anyone else. Clara pressed a cool cloth to his forehead and whispered, "Don't you dare die, Jackson Pike, not before I figure out whether I hate you or not." His hand found hers in his sleep. Held on. She didn't pull away. Hours passed. The sun set. Clara lit lamps and kept vigil beside a man she'd known 3 days and married 2. Tom came by once, took one look at Jackson and said he'd handle the evening feeding. "You need anything, ma'am, you holler." "I need him to live," Clara said. "He will, too stubborn to do otherwise." But Tom's eyes said he wasn't sure. Around midnight, Jackson's fever spiked. He thrashed and called out names Clara didn't recognize: Mary, John, Ma, his dead family. He was back there 22 and far from home, hearing news that came too late. "I'm sorry," he mumbled. "I'm so sorry. I should have been there." Clara gripped his hand harder. "Jackson, listen to me. You're not there. You're here. You're home, and you're not alone." "Clara, yes, I'm here. Don't leave. I won't, I promise." She meant it. God help her, she meant it. The fever broke around 3 in the morning. One moment Jackson was burning, the next. His skin cooled and his breathing evened out. He fell into real sleep, his hand still holding hers. Clara sagged with relief so profound it hurt. She dozed in the chair beside him, too afraid to let go, too tired to stay awake. Dawn came soft through the windows. Clara woke to find Jackson watching her, his winter sky eyes clear and focused. "You stayed," he said hoarsely. "Someone had to keep you from dying of your own stupidity. Could have let me die, would have solved your problem." Clara stood and busied herself at the stove, unable to look at him. "What problem?" "Being married to me." She slammed the coffee pot down harder than necessary. "You think I want to be a widow? You think I want to explain to the whole territory that my husband died because he was too pig-headed to rest after getting shot?" "Shot at," Jackson corrected. "Just a graze. A graze that nearly killed you. But it didn't, thanks to you." Clara spun to face him. "Don't thank me. Just stop being stupid. Stop risking your life for fences and cattle and land. It's not worth it." "It is to me. It's all I have." "No," Clara said quietly. "It's not." Their eyes met across the small kitchen, and the air between them crackled with things unsaid. Jackson sat up, slowly wincing. "Clara?" A knock at the door interrupted whatever he'd been about to say. Tom entered without waiting for an answer. "Boss, we got a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The kind with badges. Sheriff Dawson's outside with 2 deputies. Says he needs to talk to you about last night." Jackson's jaw tightened. He stood swayed, caught himself on the table. Clara moved to help him, but he waved her off. "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You had a fever 3 hours ago." "Clara, sit down before you fall down." To her surprise, Jackson sat. Tom's eyes went wide. "I'll be damned. He actually listened to you." "Someone get the sheriff," Clara said. "If he wants to talk, he can talk in here where Jackson can sit." Tom grinned and left. Jackson looked up at her. "You're bossy when you're worried." "I'm not worried. You held my hand all night." Clara's cheeks burned. "You were delirious. You grabbed my hand. I couldn't get it free." "You could have. You chose not to." Before Clara could deny it, Sheriff Dawson walked in, a thick-built man with a gray mustache and eyes that missed nothing. His deputies flanked him, hands resting casual on their gun belts. "Pike," Dawson said, "heard you had some trouble last night." "Nothing I couldn't handle." "That's what I'm here about. Had a man ride into town this morning claiming you and your hand attacked him without cause. Says you assaulted him, stole his horse, threatened to kill him." Jackson's expression went cold. "That man was cutting my fence and running off my cattle. He says he was riding past your property and you came after him like a rabid dog." "He's lying." "Maybe, but he's got witnesses say they saw you manhandle him. Says you pulled him off his horse and told him you'd shoot him if he came back." "I did say that, After I caught him red-handed with wire cutters. Dawson sighed. You got proof he was cutting fence. Got 30 feet of cut fence. Got tracks. Got Tom as witness. Tom works for you. That won't hold up if this goes to a judge. Clara stepped forward. I'm a witness. All eyes turned to her. Ma'am, Dawson said carefully, you're his wife. That won't. I know what I am, Sheriff. I also know what I saw. Those men cut Jackson's fence. They scattered his cattle. They shot at him. Jackson and Tom defended what was theirs. If that's a crime now, then every rancher in this territory is guilty. Dawson studied her face. You saw all this. I heard gunfire. I saw blood on my husband's arm when he rode in. I saw wire cutters in Tom's saddlebag that didn't belong to this ranch. And I saw Jackson Pike risk his life to protect what's his. It wasn't quite a lie, close enough to the truth that her conscience didn't scream. Dawson looked between them then at Jackson still sitting at the table, pale and sweating. You hurt bad, Pike. Flesh wound. My wife patched me up. Your wife. Dawson's tone suggested he found that amusing. Heard you got married couple days back. Fast work. Legal work, Jackson said evenly. Now if you're done accusing me of crimes in my own house, I'd appreciate it if you'd leave. I'm not feeling sociable. Dawson turned his hat in his hands. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna tell that man his claim don't hold water, and he should ride on before he gets hurt worse. I'm gonna tell the judge there was a misunderstanding about property lines, and no charges need filing, and I'm gonna strongly suggest you stay on your land for a while and let tempers cool. Sound fair? Sounds like you're doing your job, Jackson said. Appreciate it. After the sheriff left, Tom let out a low whistle. Ma'am, you just lied to the law for boss. I didn't lie. I told him what I saw. You saw fence cutters in my saddlebag. I assumed they were there. Was I wrong? Tom laughed outright. No, ma'am, they're there, but still. No buts. Jackson's innocent. Those men were rustlers. End of story. She turned to Jackson. And you back to bed now. It's the middle of the day. I don't care if it's Christmas morning. You need rest. This time Jackson didn't argue. He let her help him to the bedroom, let her settle him under the quilts, let her fuss with pillows until he was comfortable. Clara, he said as she turned to leave, what? Thank you for lying to the sheriff, for defending me, he paused, for choosing to stay. Clara's throat tightened. I told you I don't break my vows. That's not why you stayed, not anymore. She wanted to deny it, wanted to say he was wrong, that duty and honor were the only things keeping her here, but the words wouldn't come. Instead she said, get some sleep, Jackson. We'll talk about this when you're not half dead. She closed the door before he could respond. In the kitchen, Tom was making coffee. You're in love with him. Clara dropped the cup she'd been holding. I am not. Sure you ain't. That's why you sat up all night holding his hand. That's why you lied to the sheriff. That's why you look at him like what? Like you're terrified and hopeful at the same time. Clara sank into a chair. I've known him 3 days. Some people know someone 30 years and never really see them. Others know them 3 days and see everything. Tom poured coffee and slid a cup across to her. Boss is a good man, ma'am. Lonely and broken in some ways, but good. You could do a lot worse. I didn't choose him. Maybe not at first, but you're choosing him now every time you stay instead of run, every time you tend his wounds instead of let them fester, every time you defend him instead of let him fall. Tom headed for the door. Just thought you should know he's choosing you too, has been since before you knew his name. He left Clara alone with coffee and truth she wasn't ready to swallow. The next 3 days passed in strange domesticity. Jackson recovered slowly, restless and irritable at being confined to bed. Clara brought him meals and changed his bandages and ignored his complaints about missing work. Tom's handling it, she said for the 10th time. Tom's not me. Tom's not injured and feverish. That makes him smarter than you right now. Jackson glared at her. You're enjoying this. Immensely. But she smiled when she said it, and Jackson smiled back, and something warm settled in Clara's chest that had nothing to do with the coffee. On the fourth day, Jackson insisted on getting up. Clara helped him to the kitchen where he sat at the table looking out at his land. "I should be out there." "You should be grateful you're alive." "I am grateful." He turned to look at her. "More than you know." Clara busied herself at the stove. "Your arm looks better, no more infection. You should be able to work light duty tomorrow if you promise not to be stupid." "Define stupid." "Anything that involves bleeding, passing out, or making me worry." "You worry about me." Clara's hands stilled. She didn't turn around. "Someone has to." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer you're getting." She heard his chair scrape back, heard his footsteps behind her, felt his presence like heat from a fire. "Clara," Jackson said softly, "look at me." She turned. He stood closer than necessary, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to see his face. "I know this isn't what you wanted," Jackson said. "I know I'm not what you would have chosen, but we're here now, married, living under the same roof. And I need to know, is there any chance, any possibility at all, that someday you might not hate being my wife?" Clara's heart hammered. "I don't hate being your wife." "You don't? No, I hate that I didn't choose it. I hate that my uncle gambled away my future. I hate that I had no say in any of this." She took a shaky breath. "But I don't hate you, Jackson Pike. I thought I would. God knows I tried, but I don't." "What do you feel?" "I don't know yet. Ask me again when I figure it out." Jackson's hand came up slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His palm cupped her cheek, rough and warm and impossibly gentle. "Can I kiss you?" he asked. "A real kiss this time, not just your forehead." Clara's breath caught. Every logical part of her brain screamed no, but her heart, her treacherous, foolish heart, whispered yes. "Why?" she whispered back. "Because I've been wanting to since the moment you told that sheriff he was wrong for doubting me. Because you held my hand through fever and didn't let go. Because when you look at me, I don't see fear anymore. I see something else, something that might be hope," Clara finished. "You see hope. Do you feel it too? Did she?" Was this flutter in her chest every time he walked in a room, this relief when he came home safe, this terror when he'd been hurt? Was that hope or something more dangerous? "Yes," Clara admitted. "I feel it too." Jackson's thumb brushed her cheekbone. "Then can I kiss you?" Clara rose on her toes, not far enough. He was too tall, and said yes. He closed the distance between them slowly, like she was something precious that might break. His lips touched hers, soft and questioning, and Clara felt the world tilt sideways. This wasn't the perfunctory kiss at their wedding. This was real. This was Jackson Pike asking for something he wanted and waiting for her to give it freely. Clara's hands came up to his chest, felt his heart hammering under her palms as fast as her own, and she kissed him back. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jackson rested his forehead against hers. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what? For giving me a chance. For not running. For being you." Clara's eyes burned. "Don't make me regret this, Jackson." "I won't. I swear to God I won't." A throat cleared behind them. They sprang apart to find Tom standing in the doorway, grinning like he'd won a bet with himself. "Sorry to interrupt," Tom said, not sounding sorry at all. "But we got company. The Wainwright sisters from town. Says they heard Mrs. Pike was here and wanted to pay a visit." Clara's stomach sank. The Wainwright sisters, Sarah and Margaret, were the biggest gossips in Silver Ridge. They'd come to inspect the new Mrs. Pike like she was livestock at auction. Jackson's jaw tightened. "Tell them we're not receiving visitors." "You can't," Clara said. "That'll just make them talk more. I'll handle it." "You sure? I've dealt with worse than two nosy old women." But she straightened her dress and smoothed her hair, suddenly aware that she looked like a woman who'd just been kissed and didn't regret it. Jackson caught her hand. "Clara, if they say anything cruel, anything at all that hurts you, I'll throw them off my land myself." "Our land," Clara corrected. You said it was ours, remember? Jackson's smile could have lit the whole valley. Our land, right. Clara walked out to greet the sisters with her head high and her heart still racing from a kiss that changed everything. The Wainwright sisters sat in their buggy like judges at a trial. Sarah the elder was thin as a fence post. Margaret was rounder, softer, but no less sharp in her observations. "Mrs. Pike," Sarah called out, "how lovely to finally see you. We were so worried when we heard Mr. Pike had been injured." Worried, right, more like thrilled to have fresh gossip. "Just a scratch," Clara said pleasantly. "He's recovering nicely. Would you like to come in for tea?" She saw the calculation in their eyes. Come inside and see how the new bride lived, or refuse and miss all the details. "That would be delightful," Margaret said. Clara led them into the parlor and busied herself making tea while the sisters inspected everything with their greedy little eyes. "Such a large house," Sarah said. "Must be difficult to manage alone." "I manage just fine, of course. Though I'm sure Mr. Pike expects certain standards. Men can be so particular." Clara set down the tea tray harder than necessary. "Jackson is quite happy with how I run our home. Was there something specific you wanted to discuss, or did you come just to criticize my housekeeping?" Margaret's eyes widened. Sarah's lips pursed. "We meant no offense," Margaret said quickly. "We only wanted to ensure you were well. The circumstances of your marriage were so unusual." "You mean because my uncle lost the ranch to Jackson?" "Well, yes. And you're wondering if I'm being treated well, if I'm happy, if I'm being," Clara paused deliberately, "forced into anything against my will." Both women leaned forward. Clara smiled sweetly. "I'm being treated with complete respect. Jackson is a gentleman, and while I didn't choose this marriage initially, I'm choosing to stay now. Does that answer your questions?" "You're choosing to stay," Sarah repeated. "You mean you could leave?" "I could walk out that door right now if I wanted. Jackson's made that clear from the beginning, but I don't want to leave. This is my home, he's my husband, and frankly, it's none of your concern." The sisters exchanged glances. "My dear," Margaret said, in a tone meant to be comforting, "we're only worried because, well, Mr. Pike has a certain reputation." "For being honest and hard-working," Clara interrupted. "For protecting what's his, for keeping his word. Yes, I'm aware of his reputation. I'm also aware that most of what people say about him is based on fear and ignorance. Jackson Pike is a good man, and anyone who suggests otherwise will have me to answer to." Silence. Then Sarah set down her teacup. "Well, I can see you're quite devoted to him." "I am. That's unexpected." "Why, because I'm small and he's large. Because our marriage started with a card game. Because you expected me to be miserable." Clara stood. "I'm sorry to disappoint you ladies, but I'm not miserable. I'm exactly where I choose to be. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to check on my husband." She showed them to the door without ceremony. They left in a flutter of disapproval and thwarted curiosity. Jackson appeared as soon as their buggy disappeared down the road. That was magnificent. "You were listening. Every word. Anyone who suggests otherwise will have me to answer to. Clara, you just defended my honor to the biggest gossips in the territory. They deserved it, treating you like some kind of monster." Jackson pulled her close, careful of his healing arm. "You called me your husband, not just Jackson, your husband." Clara realized she had. Realized she'd meant it. "Well," she said, "that's what you are, legally." "Legally," Jackson agreed, his eyes warm. "And maybe something more." "Maybe," Clara whispered. "Ask me tomorrow. I'll ask you every day until you're sure. That might take a while. I've got time." He kissed her again, soft and sweet and full of promise, and Clara wrapped her arms around him and kissed him back. Behind them, Tom's voice called out, "Y'all gonna stand there kissing or help me feed the horses?" They broke apart laughing. "Duty calls," Jackson said. "Go, I'll start dinner." She watched him walk to the barn, watched Tom clap him on the shoulder and say something that made Jackson laugh again, and felt something settle in her chest. This wasn't the life she'd planned, wasn't the marriage she'd dreamed of as a girl. But maybe, just maybe, it was exactly the life she needed. 2 weeks passed like water through fingers, quick and precious, and gone before Clara could hold on to them properly. She woke each morning to find Jackson already working, came back each evening to his smile when she called him for supper, fell asleep each night listening to him breathe in the room across the hall. They hadn't shared a bed yet, hadn't done more than kiss. But the space between them grew smaller every day, and Clara found herself wanting to close it entirely. She was in the garden picking vegetables when she heard the horses, 3 riders coming fast from the east, kicking up dust, their faces hidden under wide-brimmed hats. Something about the way they sat their saddles made Clara's stomach clench. She dropped the basket and ran for the house. Jackson. He emerged from the barn with Tom, both men taking one look at her face and reaching for rifles. "How many?" Jackson asked. "3, coming fast." "Get inside, bar the door." "I'm not hiding while—" "Clara," Jackson gripped her shoulders. "Please, if something happens to me, I need to know you're safe. Please." The fear in his eyes decided her. She ran inside, grabbed her father's rifle from above the door, and positioned herself at the window where she could see and shoot if needed. The riders pulled up in the yard. 3 men, all armed, all wearing the kind of hard expressions that came from lives lived outside the law. The one in front was young, maybe 25, with a scar running from his eye to his jaw. "Jackson Pike." "That's me." "My name's Cole Coulter. You know that name." Jackson's jaw tightened. "I know it." "Then you know why I'm here. You humiliated my brother Daniel 2 weeks back. Yanked him off his horse, threatened to shoot him, sent him running like a dog. Your brother was stealing my cattle. My brother was riding across land he thought was open range. You attacked him without cause." "That's a lie, and we both know it." Cole Coulter smiled, and it was the smile of a snake before it strikes. "Don't much matter what's true. Matters what people believe, and people are going to believe that Jackson Pike is a violent man who attacks innocent travelers. Unless what? Unless you make it right. $500 ought to cover my brother's pain and suffering." Jackson laughed, sharp and humorless. "Your brother's suffering is going to get a lot worse if he doesn't stay off my land. Same goes for you. Now turn around and ride out before I lose my patience." Cole's smile disappeared. "You threatening me, Pike? I'm telling you facts. You're trespassing. You're making accusations you can't prove, and you're about 5 seconds from getting shot if you don't leave." The other 2 riders reached for their guns. Tom's rifle came up smooth and steady. "I wouldn't." For a long moment, nobody moved. Clara's finger rested on the trigger, her heart hammering so hard she thought they could hear it from outside. Then Cole Coulter laughed. "All right, Pike, we'll leave, but this ain't over. Nobody humiliates a Coulter and walks away clean. You remember that." They turned and rode out slow and deliberate, making a show of not being afraid. Jackson didn't lower his rifle until they disappeared over the ridge. "That was stupid," Tom said quietly. "Coulters are mean. 3 brothers, all of them meaner than rattlesnakes. They'll be back." "I know. With more men next time." "I know." Clara burst out of the house. "What the hell was that?" Jackson turned, surprised. "You were supposed to stay inside." "I stayed inside. I also had a rifle pointed at Cole Coulter's head the entire time, so if he'd drawn on you, I would have blown his brains across the yard. Now what was that about?" Jackson and Tom exchanged glances. "The truth," Clara demanded. "Now." Jackson sighed. "The Coulter brothers run cattle through these parts. They don't own land, just drift from place to place taking what they want. Daniel Coulter was the man I caught cutting my fence. His brothers are here for revenge." "So they'll come back?" "Yes, with more men." "Probably." Clara felt cold despite the afternoon heat. "We need to go to the sheriff. Sheriff can't do anything until they actually commit a crime, and by then it'll be too late." "So what do we do?" Jackson looked at her for a long moment. I send you to town, keep you safe. No. Clara. No, I'm not leaving. This is my home. You said so yourself, our home, which means I fight for it same as you. You could get killed. So could you, but you're not running, so neither am I. Tom spat tobacco juice and grinned. Told you she was a fighter, boss. Jackson's expression was torn between pride and terror. Clara, please. I can shoot. You know I can. You need every gun you can get, and I'm not going anywhere. She stepped closer, took his hand. We're in this together, Jackson, for better or worse. Remember, that's what we promised. I remember, Jackson said quietly. I just wish the worst part wasn't coming so fast. That night they prepared. Jackson checked all the rifles, made sure ammunition was plentiful, reinforced the doors and shutters. Tom rode to the neighboring ranch, the Hendersons, 5 miles west, to warn them and ask for help if shooting started. Clara cooked dinner that none of them had appetite for. They'll come at night, Jackson said, pushing food around his plate. Probably tomorrow or the day after. They'll want to catch us sleeping. So we don't sleep, Clara said. We take turns on watch. Tom and I will take first watch, Clara interrupted. You'll take second. You're still healing from that bullet graze. You need rest more than we do. Jackson started to argue, saw the set of her jaw, and surrendered. Fine, but at first sign of trouble, you wake me, promise. I promise. After dinner, Jackson stopped Clara as she cleared plates. Can I ask you something? Always. If you could go back to before the wedding, before any of this, would you? Clara set down the dishes. Are you asking if I regret marrying you? I'm asking if you'd choose differently, knowing what you know now, knowing the Coulters are coming, knowing there's gonna be violence, knowing you might, his voice caught, knowing you might get hurt because of me. Clara cupped his face in her hands, made him look at her. Jackson Pike, listen to me carefully. I don't regret marrying you. I don't regret staying. I don't regret any of it. And I wouldn't choose differently. Not now, not ever. Do you understand? Clara, do you understand? Yes, he whispered. Good. Now get some rest. We've got a long night ahead. He caught her wrist as she turned away. I love you. The words hung in the air between them, enormous and terrifying and true. Clara's breath caught. 3 weeks. They'd been married 3 weeks, known each other barely longer, and he was standing here telling her he loved her while death rode toward them from the east. You don't have to say it back, Jackson said quickly. I just needed you to know. In case tomorrow. Clara kissed him, hard and desperate and full of all the things she couldn't say yet, all the feelings she was still figuring out, all the hope and fear and something that might be love but was definitely close enough to count. When they broke apart, she pressed her forehead to his chest. Ask me again after we survive this. Then I'll tell you what I feel. That's a promise. That's a promise. The night passed slow and cold. Clara and Tom took the first watch, positioned at opposite windows with rifles across their laps. They didn't talk much. Tom chewed tobacco and occasionally spat into a tin can. Clara watched the darkness and tried not to think about bullets and blood and widows. Around midnight, Tom spoke quietly. He loves you, you know. I know. Been 8 years since I seen him care about anything more than this ranch. You changed that. Changed him. Or maybe he was always this person and just needed someone to see it. Tom nodded slowly. Maybe so. Either way, he'll die protecting you. You know that, right? If it comes down to you or him, he'll choose you every time. Then I'll have to make sure it doesn't come down to that. You love him back. Clara thought about Jackson's hands gentle on her face, about him sleeping on the couch to give her space, about him buying fabric for dresses because she'd mentioned hers were worn, about him telling her this was her home too, her choice too, her life too. Yes, Clara said, I think I do. Then tell him before it's too late. I will, after we survive this. That's a big after, ma'am. Then we better make sure we get there. At 2 in the morning, they woke Jackson for his watch. Clara tried to sleep, but couldn't. Every sound made her jump. Every creak of the house made her reach for the rifle beside the bed. Dawn came gray and cold. No attack, not yet. They ate breakfast in tense silence, then took positions. Jackson at the front window, Tom at the back, Clara in the bedroom with a clear view of the eastern approach. "They're trying to make us nervous," Jackson said around noon, "waiting us out, hoping we'll let our guard down." "Will we?" Clara asked. "No, we hold position until they come or give up." But the Coulters didn't give up. They came at dusk when the sun painted everything red and gold and made it hard to see clearly. 6 riders this time, not 3, all armed with rifles and the kind of confidence that came from superior numbers. Cole Coulter led them, sitting his horse like a king surveying conquered land. "Pike," he shouted, "come on out! Let's settle this like men." Jackson appeared on the porch, rifle in hand, but not pointed. "Not yet. You're trespassing, Coulter. Leave now and nobody gets hurt. You had your chance to make this right. You chose pride over peace. Now you're going to learn what happens when you cross a Coulter." "I'm not coming out there." "Then we're coming in." The riders spread out surrounding the house. Clara's hands tightened on her rifle. Tom cocked his weapon with a sound that echoed through the silence. "Last chance, Pike," Cole called. "Walk out now, take your beating like a man, and we'll leave your pretty little wife alone. Otherwise..." "Otherwise what?" Jackson's voice was ice. "You'll burn down my house, kill my wife, turn yourself into murderers that every lawman in the territory will hunt until the end of time. Think this through, Cole. You want revenge for your brother's pride, I get that. But is it worth hanging for?" Cole's horse shifted nervously. "You think you're so smart, don't you? Hiding behind your wife behind these walls." "I'm not hiding. I'm protecting what's mine. Same as any man would. Same as you would if someone came for your family. We ain't got family, just each other. And you hurt one of us, you hurt all of us." "Then your brother shouldn't have been stealing my cattle." A shot rang out. Clara couldn't tell who fired first. One of Coulter's men maybe, or Tom, reacting to a sudden movement. Didn't matter. The silence shattered into gunfire. Clara fired at the rider nearest the house. Missed. Fired again. Hit his horse instead. The animal screamed and bucked, throwing its rider. Glass shattered. A bullet punched through the window 6 inches from Clara's head. "Get down!" Jackson roared. Clara dropped flat, crawled to a different window, came up firing. She could see Tom's rifle flashing from the back of the house, could hear Jackson's steady shots from the front. The Coulters were firing from behind whatever cover they could find, water trough, wagon, woodpile. One of them made a run for the house. Clara tracked him with her rifle. Fired. He went down hard, clutching his leg. "Good shot," Tom yelled. The gunfire intensified. Clara reloaded with shaking hands. She'd shot a man, actually shot him. Could see him rolling on the ground, screaming, blood spreading across his pants. She was going to be sick. "Clara." Jackson's voice cut through her panic. "You still with me?" "Yes. That's my girl. Keep shooting." She did. Fired until her rifle was empty, reloaded, fired again. Lost count of how many shots. Lost track of time. There was only the gun in her hands and targets moving in the dusk, and Jackson's voice calling encouragement every time she hit something. Then suddenly, silence. The Coulters were retreating, dragging their wounded with them, riding hard back the way they'd come. Cole Coulter's voice carried back across the yard. "This ain't over, Pike. We'll be back." Then they were gone, swallowed by the falling night. Jackson appeared in Clara's doorway. "You hurt?" "No. You?" "No, Tom." Tom's voice came from the back. "Still breathing, boss." Jackson sagged against the doorframe. Clara saw his hands shaking, saw the fear that had been hidden, while bullets flew now, written clear across his face. "You could have died," he whispered. "Christ, Clara, you could have." She crossed the room and wrapped her arms around him. "But I didn't. We didn't. We're alive." Jackson held her so tight she could barely breathe. When I saw that bullet come through your window, when I thought, don't think about it, I'm here, I'm safe, we're safe. For now, but Cole was right, they'll be back. Clara pulled back to look at him. Then we'll be ready. Again, as many times as it takes. I can't ask you to keep doing this, to keep risking your life for land and cattle, and you're not asking. I'm choosing. Same as I chose to stay, chose to fight, chose you. Clara gripped his shirt. Jackson, I need to tell you something before tomorrow comes and I lose my chance. What? I love you. The words came out rushed and clumsy. I know it's fast. I know it's crazy. I know we barely know each other and this whole marriage started wrong, and you probably think I'm just scared and… Jackson kissed her silent. When he finally pulled back, his eyes were wet. Say it again. I love you, Jackson Pike. Again. I love you. I'm never gonna get tired of hearing that. Good, Clara said, because I'm planning to say it a lot. Assuming we survive whatever's coming next. We'll survive, we have to. I've got a whole life to build with you, Clara Pike. I'm not letting some two-bit rustlers take that away from me. Tom cleared his throat from the doorway. Sorry to interrupt, but Henderson's riding in with 4 of his hands. Saw the smoke from the gunfire. By the time Henderson and his men arrived, Clara had cleaned up the worst of the damage. They'd lost 3 windows, had bullet holes in 2 walls, and the water trough had more holes than Swiss cheese. But the house stood. They stood. Henderson was a thick man in his 50s with kind eyes and a practical manner. Pike, heard you had trouble. Coulter brothers, they'll be back. How many? 6 tonight, maybe more next time. Henderson nodded slowly. I'll leave 2 men here, got 2 more I can send tomorrow. That puts you at 7 guns total. Should be enough to hold until the sheriff can get word to the marshal in Carson City. I can't ask you to risk your men for… You ain't asking. I'm offering. We're neighbors, Pike. That means something out here. Besides… Henderson glanced at Clara. Heard your wife stood with you. Takes courage, that does. Takes loyalty. That's worth defending. Clara felt tears prick her eyes. These men, strangers, really were willing to risk their lives to help them, because that's what people did out here. They stood together or died alone. Thank you, she managed. Don't thank me yet, ma'am. Thank me when this is over. The next 2 days were tense. They kept constant watch, slept in shifts, jumped at every sound. The Coulters didn't return, but the waiting was almost worse than the fighting. Clara found herself checking windows constantly, rifle always within reach. On the 3rd day, the sheriff arrived with news. Got word to the marshal, Dawson said. He's sending deputies, should be here in 2 days. Meantime, I'm posting a notice that the Coulter brothers are wanted for attempted murder. Any man harboring them will be charged as an accessory. That'll just make them more desperate, Jackson said. Maybe, but it also means anyone who helps you is on the right side of the law. That matters to some folks. After Dawson left, Clara found Jackson standing on the porch, staring at the horizon. You're worried, she said. 2 days is a long time. Plenty can happen in 2 days. Then we'll handle whatever happens, together. Jackson pulled her close. I keep thinking about what Tom said, that I'd choose you over me if it came down to it. He's right. If they come back, Clara, and it's your life or mine. Don't, Clara interrupted fiercely. Don't you dare talk about dying. Don't you dare give up before the fight even starts. I'm not giving up. I'm being realistic. The Coulters want blood, mine specifically, and I need you to promise me something. What? If they come back and things go bad, if it looks like we're gonna lose, you run. You take a horse and you ride to Henderson's and you don't look back. Promise me. No. Clara. I said no. We stand together or we don't stand at all. That's how marriage works, Jackson, for better or worse. Remember, this is the worst part. I know, and I'm still here. Jackson kissed her forehead. You're the bravest person I've ever met. Or the stupidest. Both, probably. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I love you, Clara Pike. I love you too. Now stop acting like we're already dead. We've got 2 more days to get ready. Let's use them. They did. Reinforced every weak point in the house. Set up clear fields of fire from every window. Stockpiled ammunition and water and food. Henderson's men worked alongside them, solid and steady, treating Clara with the same respect they showed Jackson. On the evening of the 4th day, Tom came running from his watchpost. They're coming. 8 riders this time, maybe 10, hard to tell in the dust. Jackson checked his rifle. Everybody to positions. Clara, I know my position. Front bedroom eastern window, 20 rounds plus my pistol as backup. Good girl. He kissed her quick and hard. I love you. Tell me again after we win. That's a promise. The Coulters came at sunset again, but this time they came hard and fast. No talking, no posturing, just a sudden charge with guns blazing. Clara fired steadily, mechanically. Didn't let herself think about who she was shooting at, whether she was killing men or just scaring them. There was only the rifle and the targets, and Jackson's voice from across the hall shouting encouragement. Henderson's men fired from the barn. Tom covered the back. Bullets tore through the remaining windows, thudded into walls, kicked up splinters from the floorboards. One of the Coulters made it to the porch. Clara heard the front door crash open, heard Jackson's shout, heard a gunshot from inside the house. She dropped her rifle and grabbed her pistol, ran toward the front room, saw a man she didn't recognize grappling with Jackson, saw a knife flash in the dying light. Clara fired without thinking. The man dropped. Jackson stared at her, breathing hard. You killed him. He was going to stab you. Clara, he was going to kill you. Another Coulter burst through the door. Tom shot him from behind. He fell across the first body. Then suddenly it was over. The remaining Coulters were riding away, 2 of them slumped in their saddles, leaving bodies behind. Cole Coulter's voice carried back one last time. You're dead, Pike. You hear me, dead. But his voice was distant and fading, and he didn't come back. Clara dropped her pistol, stared at the man she'd killed. He was young, maybe 20. Had someone loved him? Would someone mourn him? Clara. Jackson's hands on her shoulders. Look at me. Not him, me. She looked up, saw blood on Jackson's shirt. You're hurt. Just a scratch. The knife barely got me. But if you hadn't... His voice broke. You saved my life. You'd have done the same for me. In a heartbeat. Every time for the rest of my life. Tom appeared, breathing hard. Henderson's men got 2 more in the barn. Think that's all of them that came. Sheriff's gonna need to see this. Bodies and all. Clara's legs gave out. Jackson caught her, held her while she shook with reaction and shock and the terrible knowledge that she'd taken a human life. I killed him, she whispered. I killed him. You protected your home, protected your husband. That's not murder, Clara. That's survival. But he's dead because of me. He's dead because he broke into our house with a knife, because he chose violence. You didn't choose this, Clara. He did. Clara wanted to believe that, needed to believe it, but the young man's face would haunt her dreams for years to come. The sheriff arrived an hour later with 2 deputies. They counted bodies, 4 Coulter men dead, including Cole himself, who'd taken a bullet from Henderson's foreman during the retreat. 2 more wounded and captured. The rest scattered into the territory with prices on their heads. It's over, Dawson said. Coulter gang's broken. They won't be back. Jackson nodded, too exhausted to speak. Clara stood beside him, her hand in his, and wondered what they'd won. The ranch was safe. They were alive. But she'd killed a man, and that knowledge sat heavy in her heart. That night, after Henderson's men left, and Tom bedded down in the barn, and the house fell quiet, Clara found she couldn't sleep. She sat at the kitchen table staring at nothing until Jackson appeared. Can't sleep either. Every time I close my eyes, I see his face. Jackson sat beside her. The man you shot, he was so young, Jackson. Probably had a mother somewhere, maybe a girl waiting for him, and now he's dead because of me. He's dead because he made bad choices, because he rode onto our land with violence in his heart. You didn't kill him, Clara. His own decisions did. That doesn't make it easier. No, it doesn't. Jackson took her hand. Taking a life changes you. I won't lie about that. You'll carry this with you, but you'll learn to live with it because you had no choice. It was him or me, and I'm selfishly glad you chose me. Clara's eyes burned. I'd choose you every time, even knowing what it would cost, even knowing I'd have to live with this. I'd still choose you. That's love, Jackson said quietly. The real kind, not the easy kind from songs and poems. The hard kind that asks you to sacrifice and suffer and still show up the next day. Is it always this hard? No, sometimes it's easy. Sometimes it's coffee in the morning and your hand in mine and stars over the valley. But sometimes it's this, blood and fear and hard choices. And if you want out, Clara, if this is too much, I won't hold it against you. I'll give you your freedom and I'll understand. Clara looked at him, at this giant of a man who'd shown her nothing but gentleness, who'd given her choices when she had none, who'd stood beside her through gunfire and death and terror, and never once asked her to be anything but herself. I don't want out, she said. I want in all the way. For the rest of my life, I want you, Jackson Pike, in the hard times and the easy ones, when it's coffee and stars and when it's blood and bullets. I want all of it. Jackson's eyes shone wet in the lamplight. Even after everything, especially after everything. Clara squeezed his hand. You once asked me if there was any chance I might not hate being your wife. Well, I've got your answer now. I don't hate being your wife. I love being your wife. I love you. And nothing, not rustlers, not gossips, not my own fear, is going to change that. Clara, and one more thing, I'm done sleeping in separate rooms. Tonight I want to sleep beside my husband. I want to fall asleep in your arms and wake up knowing you're there. Is that all right with you? Jackson stood and pulled her to her feet. It's more than all right. It's everything I've wanted since the day I met you. He led her to the bedroom, their bedroom now, not his or hers, but theirs, and they lay down together fully clothed, too exhausted for anything but holding each other in the darkness. We survived, Clara whispered. We did. What comes next? Tomorrow we rebuild, we heal, we keep going. And after tomorrow, Jackson kissed her hair, after tomorrow we build the life we want. Together, no more running, no more fear, just us and this land and whatever time God gives us. Clara closed her eyes and felt his heart beating steady beneath her cheek. Outside, the valley lay quiet beneath the stars. The bodies had been removed. The blood would wash away with the next rain. The bullet holes could be patched. They'd survived fire and blood. They'd stood together and won. And tomorrow they'd start building something worth fighting for. Clara woke to morning light streaming through the window, and Jackson's arm heavy across her waist. For a moment she lay still, memorizing the feeling, his warmth against her back, his breath steady in her hair, the absolute safety of being held by someone who'd proven he'd die before letting harm come to her. You're awake, Jackson murmured against her neck. How did you know? Your breathing changed. You tense up when you're thinking too hard. Clara turned in his arms to face him. His hair was mussed, his jaw rough with stubble, and she'd never seen anything more beautiful in her life. What are you thinking about? He asked. That I could get used to this, waking up next to you. Good, because I plan on making it a permanent arrangement. He kissed her softly. How are you feeling about yesterday? The young man's face flashed through her mind, the way he'd fallen, the blood. I'm managing, Clara said. It helps having you here. I'm not going anywhere, ever. They lay there in comfortable silence until Tom's voice called from outside about morning chores. Jackson groaned and reluctantly left the bed. Clara watched him dress, watched him move through the room with the easy confidence of a man comfortable in his own skin, and felt something warm settle in her chest. This was her husband, her home, her life now, And despite everything, the violence, the fear, the blood on her hands, she wouldn't trade it for anything. The next weeks passed in a blur of rebuilding. They replaced windows, patched bullet holes, repaired the water trough. Henderson's men helped for the first few days, then returned to their own ranch, with promises to come if called again. The territory settled back into its normal rhythm, though Clara noticed people in town treated them differently now, with respect, with caution, with the understanding that the Pikes weren't people you crossed. She didn't like being feared, but she understood it. A month after the Coulters, Clara missed her monthly courses. She didn't think much of it at first. Stress could do that, and Lord knew she'd had enough stress for a lifetime. But when she missed a second month, and when certain smells started making her stomach turn, she began to wonder. She was hanging laundry when the realization hit her fully. Her hands stilled on a sheet, her heart suddenly racing. She might be carrying Jackson's child. The thought terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. A baby, a tiny person made from their love, their union, their stubborn refusal to let the world break them, but also a baby. Something fragile and helpless depending on her, something that could be hurt or lost or stolen, something else to fear losing in a world that had already proven itself cruel. "You all right?" Clara turned to find Jackson watching her from the porch, concern written across his face. "I'm fine," she said automatically. Then, because they'd promised honesty, "Actually, I need to talk to you about something." Jackson was beside her in 3 long strides. "What's wrong? Are you hurt? Did something—" "I think I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air between them. Jackson's expression went blank with shock. "You're what? Pregnant? Maybe. I'm not certain yet, but I've missed 2 months, and I've been sick in the mornings. And Jackson, are you breathing?" He wasn't. His face had gone pale. "Jackson." He sucked in air like a drowning man. "A baby. You're having a baby. My baby." "Our baby," Clara corrected. "If I'm actually pregnant, I could be wrong." "But you don't think you are?" "No, I think I'm right." Jackson calmed down hard on the ground, just dropped right there in the dirt, like his legs wouldn't hold him. Clara had seen this man face down 6 armed men without flinching. She'd watched him take a bullet and keep fighting, but news of a baby had put him on the ground. "Jackson, I'm gonna be a father," he whispered. "Me, a father." Clara sat beside him. "Are you happy about it?" "Happy." He turned to her and his eyes were wet. "Clara, I'm terrified and thrilled and so damn happy I can barely breathe. A baby. Our baby." He placed his hand on her still flat stomach. "There's a person in there, a tiny person we made together. We don't know for sure yet. I need to see the doctor to confirm. We're going to town right now, today, this minute." Clara laughed. "The laundry. Damn the laundry. We're finding out if I'm gonna be a father." He pulled her to her feet and practically ran to the barn to saddle the horses. Clara followed amused and touched by his urgency. This giant of a man, this legend, who'd built a ranch with his bare hands and faced down outlaws without blinking, was reduced to giddy excitement by the possibility of a child. Dr. Morrison confirmed it an hour later. Clara was approximately 8 weeks pregnant, due sometime in late April or early May. Healthy so far, though Clara's small frame concerned him. "You'll need to be careful," Morrison said. "Get plenty of rest, no heavy lifting, and we'll want to monitor you closely as you get further along." "Why?" Jackson demanded. "Is something wrong?" "Nothing's wrong yet, but Mrs. Pike is a small woman carrying what will likely be a large baby given your size. Mr. Pike, we just need to be cautious." The word cautious seemed to unlock something in Jackson. As they rode home, he peppered Clara with questions and concerns until she wanted to scream. "Should you be riding? Is the saddle too rough? Are you comfortable? Do you need to stop and rest?" "Jackson, I'm fine. I'm pregnant, not dying. But the doctor said to be careful, not to wrap me in cotton and lock me in the house." She pulled her horse to a stop. "Listen to me. I know you're worried. I'm worried too. but I need you to trust that I know my own body. I'll tell you if something's wrong, I promise. But you cannot spend the next 7 months treating me like I'm made of glass." Jackson looked miserable. "I just got you. I can't lose you now." Clara's irritation melted. She understood. He'd lost his mother, his siblings. Everyone he'd loved had been taken from him. The fear that history would repeat itself was written all over his face. "You're not going to lose me," she said firmly. "I'm strong, stronger than I look, and I'm going to have this baby and raise it with you, and we're going to be so happy together we'll make everyone else jealous." All right, Jackson agreed, but the fear didn't leave his eyes. The pregnancy progressed normally for the first few months. Clara's stomach grew round, her dresses had to be let out, and Jackson became more anxiously protective with each passing day. He forbade her from lifting anything heavier than a teacup. He barely let her cook, insisting Tom or he would handle it. He watched her like a hawk, jumping up any time she made the slightest sound of discomfort. "You're driving me insane," Clara finally told him in her 5th month. "I'm keeping you safe." "You're smothering me. Jackson, I love you, but if you ask me one more time if I need to sit down, I'm going to hit you with something. You need to rest. The baby is fine. I'm fine. What's not fine is having my husband treat me like an invalid when I'm perfectly capable of living my normal life." Jackson's jaw set stubbornly. Dr. Morrison said to be careful not to stop living. There's a difference." Clara took his hands. "I know you're scared. I'm scared too, but you're letting fear turn you into someone I barely recognize. The man I married trusted me, respected my choices. Where did he go?" Jackson flinched like she'd slapped him. "That's not fair. Isn't it because right now you're making decisions for me like I'm a child who can't be trusted to know what's best for her own body? That's not partnership, Jackson. That's not the marriage we promised each other. I'm trying to protect you. I know. But you're so busy protecting me, you're forgetting to see me, to hear me, to trust that I know myself well enough to ask for help when I need it." Jackson sat heavily in his chair. "I can't lose you, Clara. I can't. You're everything to me. You and this baby, if something happened, nothing's going to happen. But if you keep treating me like I'm dying, you're going to push me away. Is that what you want? No, God, no. Then trust me, please. I'll be careful, I promise. But I need to be able to move and work and live. Can you do that? Can you let me be pregnant without trying to control every second of my day?" Jackson was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "I'm sorry, you're right. I've been acting like a terrified man who loves his wife very much," Clara finished. "I understand, but love means trust too. Trust that I'll take care of myself. Trust that I'll tell you if something's wrong." "I do trust you." Jackson pulled her onto his lap carefully, his hand resting on her swollen belly. "I'm just so scared, Clara. My ma died having babies. Women die all the time in childbirth. And the thought of—" His voice broke. "I can't even think about it without wanting to die myself." Clara held him while he shook with fear he'd been holding in for months. This strong man, this gentle giant who everyone else feared, was breaking apart in her arms because he loved her so much. The thought of losing her was unbearable. "I'm not your mother," Clara said quietly. "I'm not going to die. I'm going to fight with everything I have to stay alive and bring our baby into this world safe. But you have to let me fight my own way. Can you do that? I'll try. I promise I'll try." It was the best she could hope for. The 6th month brought new complications. Clara's back ached constantly. Her feet swelled until none of her shoes fit. She couldn't sleep comfortably no matter what position she tried. And the baby, their active, restless baby, kicked hard enough to take her breath away. "I think we're having a boy," Tom observed one afternoon, watching Clara wince as a particularly strong kick caught her ribs. "Girls don't kick like that." "Or we're having a girl who's already tired of being told what girls can and can't do," Clara retorted. "This child is definitely mine." Jackson laughed. God help me if we have a daughter with your stubborn streak. You love my stubborn streak? I do. Doesn't mean it won't drive me gray raising a little version of you. But his smile faded when Clara tried to stand and gasped, her hand going to her lower back. What's wrong? Nothing, just my back. The baby's sitting heavy today. Jackson was beside her, instantly supporting her weight. You should lie down. I should keep moving. Dr. Morrison said, movement helps. Dr. Morrison also said, Jackson. Clara's tone was sharp. Remember what we talked about, trust. He backed off, though his hands hovered like he wanted to catch her if she fell. Clara walked slowly around the kitchen, one hand pressed to her aching back, and tried not to show how much it hurt. The pain got worse as weeks passed. Some days Clara could barely walk. Other days she felt almost normal. Dr. Morrison examined her and proclaimed everything normal for a woman her size carrying a large baby. The child is healthy, he assured her. Strong heartbeat, good position. But I won't lie to you, Mrs. Pike, this birth is going to be difficult. Your hips are narrow. The baby is big. You'll need to be prepared for a long labor. How long? Morrison hesitated. Hard to say. Could be 12 hours, could be 30. Every woman is different. And if something goes wrong, let's not borrow trouble. We'll handle problems if they arise. For now, focus on staying healthy and strong. You'll need all your strength when the time comes. Clara left the doctor's office with Jackson silent and grim beside her. They rode home without speaking, both lost in their own fears. That night, Jackson couldn't sleep. Clara woke around midnight to find him sitting by the window, staring out at the dark valley. Come back to bed, she said. Can't sleep. Because you're worrying about things that haven't happened yet. Jackson turned to look at her. In the moonlight, his face was haggard. What if I lose you? What if the doctor's right and the birth goes wrong and I have to choose between you and the baby? Clara's breath caught. Is that what's been eating at you? Every day, every hour, the thought that I might have to make that choice. You won't have to choose. We'll both make it through. But if you don't, if it comes down to one or the other, Jackson Pike, listen to me very carefully. Clara pushed herself up awkwardly, her belly making movement difficult. If something goes wrong, if the doctor says one of us has to die, you choose the baby. Do you understand me? You choose the baby. No. Jackson. No, I won't do it. I won't choose to let you die. It's not your choice. It's mine, and I'm telling you right now, if it comes down to me or our child, you save our child. Jackson crossed the room and knelt beside the bed. You're asking me to live without you, to raise our child alone. Clara, I can't. You can, you will, because that's what parents do. We sacrifice for our children, even before they're born, especially before they're born. I love you more than anything in this world. I know, and I love you, but this baby, our baby, deserves a chance at life. Promise me, Jackson, promise me you'll choose the baby. Jackson's face twisted with anguish. Please don't make me promise that. Promise me, I can't. They stared at each other across the darkness, neither willing to yield. Finally, Clara said quietly, Then I'm making the choice for you. I'm telling Dr. Morrison tomorrow that if complications arise, he's to save the baby. You don't get a say in this, Jackson. It's my body, my life, my choice. That's not fair. No, it's not, but it's necessary. Our child deserves someone to fight for them, and if you won't do it, I will. Jackson left the room. Clara heard the front door open and close, heard his heavy footsteps on the porch. She wanted to go after him, to comfort him, to take back the harsh words, but she couldn't. Not about this. She had to protect their child, even if it meant hurting Jackson in the process. He came back an hour later and climbed into bed without speaking. They lay back to back, each wrapped in their own fears, and neither willing to bridge the distance between them. The next morning, Clara told Dr. Morrison her wishes. Jackson stood silent and stone-faced through the entire conversation, his jaw so tight Clara thought it might crack. On the ride home, he finally spoke. I hate you for this. Clara's heart lurched. Jackson, I don't really. I love you too much to hate you, but part of me hates that you're forcing me to accept losing you, hates that you're making me promise to go on without you, hates that you're so willing to leave me alone. I'm not willing, I'm being realistic, and I'm protecting our child by destroying me, by making sure that no matter what happens, our baby has a fighting chance. Jackson, I'm not planning to die. I'm going to fight with everything I have to survive. But if I can't, if the worst happens, I need to know our child will live. Can you understand that? Jackson pulled his horse to a stop. I understand it. I just don't accept it. And I'm telling you right now, Clara Pike, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure you both survive. I don't care what the doctor says. I don't care what you've decided. I'm not losing you, not to childbirth, not to fate, not to anything. You hear me? I hear you. Good, because I love you too damn much to let you go without a fight. They rode the rest of the way home in silence, but this time it was the silence of determination rather than anger. Jackson would fight to save her, she would fight to save their child, and somehow between the two of them they'd find a way to all survive. The 8th month arrived with spring mud and budding trees. Clara was enormous now, her belly so large she couldn't see her feet. Everything hurt. Everything was uncomfortable. She couldn't sleep more than an hour at a time before needing to relieve herself or adjust position or deal with the baby's relentless kicking. I'm never getting pregnant again, she told Jackson after a particularly sleepless night. That's what all women say right before they do it again. I mean it. One miracle is enough. After this, we're done. Jackson kissed her forehead. Whatever you say, love. But they both knew she might not have a choice. One pregnancy might be all she survived. 2 weeks before her due date, Clara was working in the garden when the first pain hit. Not a contraction, she knew what those felt like from the false alarms she'd been having for weeks. This was different. Sharper, lower, like something tearing deep inside. She gasped and clutched her stomach. Clara. Tom appeared from the barn. Ma'am, you all right? Get Jackson. Now. Tom ran. Clara tried to breathe through the pain, but it was building, growing, consuming everything. She felt wetness between her legs, blood or water or both. She couldn't tell. Clara, Jackson's voice, then his arms around her. What's wrong? The baby, it's coming. But it's too early. You've got 2 more weeks. Tell that to the baby. Jackson, we need to get to the doctor. Now. They got her on a horse somehow, though Clara barely remembered the journey. Pain came in waves, each one worse than the last. By the time they reached town, she was doubled over and gasping. Dr. Morrison took one look at her and said, Get her inside. The baby's coming, whether we're ready or not. The next hours were agony. Clara had heard stories about childbirth, but nothing prepared her for this. The pain consumed her, drowned her. She screamed until her throat was raw, gripped Jackson's hand until she thought she'd break his fingers, prayed to a God she wasn't sure was listening. I can't, she sobbed at one point. I can't do this anymore. Yes, you can, Jackson said fiercely. You're the strongest person I know. You can do anything. It hurts too much. I know, I'm so sorry, but you have to keep going. For the baby. For me, please, Clara. She kept going because what other choice did she have? Kept pushing when Dr. Morrison told her to push. Kept breathing when he told her to breathe. Kept fighting when every instinct screamed at her to give up and let the darkness take her. Somewhere around the 20th hour, Morrison's expression turned grim. The baby's stuck, shoulders caught on the pelvic bone. I need to turn it or we're going to lose them both. Do it, Jackson said. It's going to hurt a lot. I don't care. Save them, both of them. Morrison worked quickly. Clara screamed. She felt something shift inside her, felt Morrison's hands, where no hands should be, felt pain so intense she thought she might die from it alone. One more push, Morrison commanded. Clara, give me everything you have left. One more push and we're done. Clara bore down with strength she didn't know she possessed. Felt something give. Felt a rush of relief. heard a thin, angry wail that was the most beautiful sound she'd ever heard in her life. "It's a girl," Morrison announced. "A healthy baby girl." Clara collapsed back against the pillows, too exhausted to cry. Jackson's face appeared above hers, tears streaming down his cheeks. "You did it," he whispered. "You're both alive. You did it." "Let me see her." Morrison cleaned the baby quickly and placed her in Clara's arms. She was tiny, barely 6 pounds, despite being Jackson's daughter, with a shock of dark hair and eyes that would probably turn Jackson's winter sky blue. She was perfect. "Hope," Clara whispered. "Her name is Hope." "Hope Pike," Jackson repeated, touching their daughter's tiny hand with one massive finger. "It's perfect. You're both perfect." But Morrison's expression was still grim. "Clara, you're bleeding heavily. I need to stop it, or—" "Do whatever you have to do," Jackson said. "Save her." Clara barely registered what happened next. She was floating disconnected from her body, watching from somewhere far away. As Morrison worked and Jackson held their daughter, and someone, maybe Tom, said something about prayer. She thought about her parents, about her mother who'd died keeping the ranch alive, about her father who'd built everything with his own hands, about Uncle Raymond who'd gambled it all away, about Jackson who'd given her a choice when she had none, about the life they'd built together from cards and desperation and stubborn refusal to accept defeat. She'd done her duty, fulfilled her promise, given Jackson the family he wanted. Now she could rest. "Clara, don't you dare." Jackson's voice cut through the fog. "Don't you dare leave me. You promised. Remember, you promised we'd raise this child together. You don't get to break that promise now." Did I promise? That Clara thought hazily. I don't remember. Fight, damn you, fight. But fighting was so hard, and she was so tired. Then someone placed Hope in her arms again. The baby nuzzled against her breast, making little sounds of hunger and need and absolute trust that her mother would take care of her. Clara's eyes focused. She looked down at her daughter, this tiny, perfect miracle, and felt something fierce wake up inside her. No, she wasn't done. She had a child to raise, a husband to love, a life to live. She wasn't dying today. "I'm still here," Clara whispered to Jackson's calm of relief was the second most beautiful sound she'd ever heard. Morrison worked for another hour before he finally stepped back. "The bleeding stopped. She's weak, lost a lot of blood, but I think she's going to make it." "You think?" Jackson demanded. "I'm 90% sure. The next 24 hours are critical. If she develops fever or starts bleeding again—" "She won't. Will you, Clara?" Clara managed a weak smile. "I didn't survive Coulter's and childbirth just to die of infection. I'll be fine." She was more than fine. She was exhausted and sore and so weak, she couldn't lift her own baby without help. But she was alive. They were both alive. That night, lying in Dr. Morrison's spare room, with Hope sleeping in a basket beside the bed and Jackson holding her hand like he'd never let go, Clara finally cried. "We did it," she sobbed. "We actually did it." "You did it," Jackson corrected. "You're a miracle, Clara Pike. An absolute miracle." "So is she." They looked at their daughter together, this tiny person who'd almost cost Clara her life, who'd given Jackson the family he'd always wanted, who'd transformed them from two broken people into something whole. "Thank you," Jackson whispered, "for fighting, for surviving, for giving me this. Thank you for not giving up on me. Never, not ever." Clara drifted off to sleep with her hand in Jackson's, and Hope's small breaths filling the room, and knew with absolute certainty that everything they'd survived, the forced marriage, the rustlers, the fear, the pain, had been worth it for this moment right here. They were a family now, scarred and tested and stronger for it, and nothing in this world or the next was going to tear them apart. Dr. Morrison kept them in town for 3 days, monitoring Clara for fever and complications that never came. On the morning of the 4th day, he pronounced her well enough to travel home, though he warned Jackson to keep her in bed for at least 2 more weeks. "I mean it, Pike. No cooking, no cleaning, no work of any kind. She needs to heal. I'll take care of her, Jackson promised. Clara wanted to argue that she could take care of herself, but the truth was she could barely walk from the bed to the door without needing to rest. Childbirth had hollowed her out, left her weak as a newborn kitten. She hated it. The ride home was slow and careful. Clara cradled in Jackson's arms on his stallion, while Tom led her mare and carried Hope in a basket strapped to his saddle. Every jolt sent pain through Clara's body, but she bit her tongue and endured. She was going home. That was all that mattered. When they finally reached the ranch, Clara actually cried with relief. Home, her home, where she belonged. Jackson carried her inside and settled her in bed like she was made of spun glass. Hope's basket went on the table beside her, close enough that Clara could reach out and touch her daughter's tiny hand. "I'm going to make you something to eat," Jackson said. "Then you're going to sleep. I need to feed Hope first." "Right, yes, of course." Jackson hovered anxiously. "Do you need help?" What should I do?" Clara smiled despite her exhaustion. This man had faced down armed outlaws without flinching, but the thought of his wife nursing their baby reduced him to stammering uncertainty. "You can give me privacy," she said gently. "I'll call you when we're done." Jackson retreated and Clara brought Hope to her breast. The baby latched immediately, hungry and determined, and Clara felt something deep in her chest settle into place. This was right. This was what she was meant to do. Not just survive, but nurture. Not just endure, but love. When Hope finally fell asleep, milk-drunk and content, Clara called for Jackson. He appeared instantly, like he'd been waiting just outside the door. "Everything all right? Everything's perfect. Come meet your daughter properly." Jackson approached the bed like he was approaching something holy. He looked at Hope with such wonder in his eyes that Clara's throat tightened. "Can I hold her?" he asked. "She's your daughter. Of course you can hold her." Jackson picked up Hope with exaggerated care, his massive hands making her look even tinier than she was. Hope stirred but didn't wake, one small fist curling against his chest. "She's so small," Jackson whispered. "How is she so small? She's actually a good size for being early. Dr. Morrison said 6 pounds is healthy." "She fits in my hands, Clara. Both of her fits in just my hands." "You'll have to be gentle with her. No tossing her in the air like a sack of grain." Jackson looked horrified. I would never, Clara. I'm terrified I'm going to break her." "You won't. You're the gentlest man I know." Clara reached out and covered his hand with hers. "You're going to be an amazing father." "I don't know how to be a father. My pa died when I was 10. I don't remember much about him except he worked all the time and smelled like tobacco." "Then you'll figure it out as you go. Same as me. I don't know how to be a mother either, but I'm going to try my best." Jackson sat carefully on the edge of the bed, still holding Hope like she might shatter. "What if I fail her? What if I'm too rough or too strict or too—" "Jackson, stop. You're already worrying about mistakes you haven't made yet. Just love her. That's all children really need. To be loved and kept safe and shown they matter. She matters more than anything in this world. Except you." Clara's eyes burned. "We're a family now, the 3 of us. We matter equally." "No," Jackson said quietly. "You matter more. You'll always matter more. Because without you there is no family. There's just me and a baby I don't know how to raise alone. You're the center of everything, Clara. Don't ever forget that." Before Clara could respond, Hope woke with a wail that seemed impossibly loud coming from something so small. Jackson nearly dropped her in his panic. "What's wrong? Is she hurt? Should I get the doctor?" Clara laughed despite her exhaustion. "She's fine, just hungry again. Babies eat constantly. You'll get used to it." "How can she be hungry? You just fed her. Welcome to fatherhood. Now hand her over before you have a heart attack." The next 2 weeks were the hardest and most beautiful of Clara's life. Hope ate every 2 hours, day and night, leaving Clara exhausted and sore and more in love than she'd known was possible. Jackson hovered constantly, bringing her food and water and clean cloths, jumping up at every sound Hope made, barely sleeping himself. Tom appeared daily with meals he'd cooked or neighbors had sent. Apparently the entire territory had heard about the difficult birth, and people Clara barely knew were sending food and baby clothes and offers of help. Even the Wainwright sisters came by, though their visit was more genuine this time. "We wanted to see the baby," Sarah said, "and to make sure you were recovering well." Clara invited them in, too tired to maintain old grudges. They cooed over Hope and admired her dark hair and pronounced her perfect. When they left, Sarah turned at the door. "Mrs. Pike, Clara, I owe you an apology. When you first married Mr. Pike, we thought terribly of you both. We were wrong. You're one of the strongest women I've ever met, and your husband clearly adores you. We were unkind, and I'm sorry." "Thank you," Clara said, surprised. "That means more than you know." After they left, Jackson appeared with tea. "Did the Wainwright sisters just apologize to you?" "They did. Miracles never cease." He settled beside her on the couch where she was resting. "How are you feeling?" "Tired, sore, happy. That's my girl." He kissed her hair. "Dr. Morrison's coming by tomorrow to check on you. Make sure you're healing properly." "I'm healing fine. Humor me. I need to hear it from the doctor." Clara sighed but didn't argue. She'd learned to pick her battles, and Jackson's anxiety about her health wasn't one worth fighting. Dr. Morrison's visit the next day confirmed what Clara already knew. She was healing well, stronger every day, though it would be months before she fully recovered. He also delivered news that made her heart sink. "The damage from Hope's birth was extensive," Morrison said carefully. "Your uterus tore. I repaired it as best I could, but the scarring means you'll never carry another child. I'm sorry, Mrs. Pike. One miracle is all you get." Clara had known this was possible. Dr. Morrison had warned her during the birth, but hearing it confirmed still felt like a door closing on a future she hadn't known she wanted. "One miracle is enough," she heard herself say. "We're grateful for Hope." After Morrison left, Jackson found her sitting in the garden, Hope asleep in her basket beside her. "You heard," he said. Hard not to. He wasn't exactly quiet about it. Jackson knelt beside her. Are you all right?" "I don't know. I thought I'd be relieved. One pregnancy nearly killed me. The thought of going through that again terrified me. But now that it's not a choice anymore, now that it's been taken away, I feel sad," Jackson finished. "It's all right to feel sad, Clara, even when we know it's for the best. I wanted to give you more children, a whole house full of them, brothers and sisters for Hope. I wanted you alive," Jackson interrupted firmly. "I wanted to grow old with you. I wanted to watch Hope grow up with both her parents, not just one. One child is more than enough. One child is everything." Clara looked at Hope peaceful in her basket and felt the sadness ease slightly. "She is everything, isn't she?" "She is, and so are you." They sat together in the spring sunshine, their daughter between them, and Clara let herself grieve for the children who would never be while celebrating the miracle they had. Hope grew quickly. At 3 months, she smiled for the first time, and Jackson wept like a baby himself. At 6 months, she sat up on her own and grabbed at everything within reach. At 9 months, she said, "Da," and Jackson carried her around for a week, telling everyone who'd listen that his daughter was a genius. "All babies say da first," Clara told him. "It's easier than mama." "My daughter is still a genius." Clara rolled her eyes but secretly agreed. Hope was extraordinary, smart and curious and strong-willed, with Jackson's eyes and Clara's stubborn streak. She was going to be a handful. Life settled into a rhythm. Jackson worked the ranch with Tom while Clara managed the house and cared for Hope. Money was tight but not desperate. They had enough. They were happy. Then, on a cold November morning, when Hope was 7 months old, a stranger rode up to the ranch. He was well-dressed, riding an expensive horse, carrying papers in a leather satchel. Everything about him screamed, "Lawyer!" and Clara's stomach dropped. "Can I help you?" Jackson asked, his tone carefully neutral. "Mr. Jackson Pike, that's me. My name is Samuel Worthington, attorney at law. I'm here on behalf of the Coulter estate." Clara felt ice slide down her spine. The Coulters. She'd almost forgotten about them, almost let herself believe that nightmare was over. "The Coulter brothers are dead," Jackson said flatly. "Killed during an attack on my property. The sheriff confirmed it, so unless you're here to apologize for them, we have nothing to discuss. I'm here about the youngest brother, Timothy Coulter. He's 15 years old, currently living with his aunt in St. Louis. She's his legal guardian." "What does a 15-year-old boy have to do with me?" Worthington pulled papers from his satchel. "According to Timothy's aunt, you murdered his 3 older brothers in cold blood. She's filed a wrongful death claim against you, Mr. Pike. She's seeking damages of $10,000 and custody of this property as restitution." The silence that followed was absolute. Then Jackson laughed hard and humorless. "That's insane. Her nephews attacked my ranch. They were rustlers and thieves. I defended my property. The sheriff's report is under review. Mrs. Coulter claims the boys were provoked, that you attacked them first, that you're a violent man with a history of aggression, and that her nephews were defending themselves. That's a lie. Nevertheless, she's filed suit. You'll need to appear in court in Carson City in 3 weeks to answer the charges." Worthington handed the papers to Jackson. "I'd suggest you hire a lawyer, Mr. Pike. Mrs. Coulter is quite determined." After Worthington left, Clara found Jackson standing in the barn, the legal papers crushed in his fist. "They're trying to take everything," he said quietly. "The ranch, our home, everything we've built. They won't succeed. We have witnesses. Tom saw the whole thing. Henderson's men were here. The sheriff works for whoever pays him most. And Mrs. Coulter apparently has money." Jackson's jaw tightened. "I won't let them take this from us, Clara. I won't let them take Hope's inheritance. Then we fight, same as we always have, together." But fighting required money they didn't have. Lawyers were expensive, and traveling to Carson City would cost even more. Clara did the math and realized they'd have to sell cattle to afford it. Cattle they needed to survive the winter. "There has to be another way," she said that night. "There isn't, unless we just surrender the ranch and walk away. No, this is Hope's home, our home. We're not giving it up without a fight." Tom spoke up from where he'd been sitting quietly in the corner. There might be another way. They both turned to look at him. "The Hendersons," Tom said. "They've got money, and they owe you for helping them with their own rustler problems last year. Bet they'd loan you what you need for a lawyer." Jackson shook his head. "I'm not taking charity. It ain't charity if you pay it back. Call it a loan. Pay them back when you can." Clara saw the pride warring with practicality in Jackson's expression. Finally, practicality won. "I'll talk to Henderson," he said, "but I'm paying back every cent, with interest." Henderson not only agreed to loan them money for a lawyer, he offered to testify on their behalf. So did 3 of his ranch hands who'd been there during the Coulter attack. So did Sheriff Dawson grudgingly after Jackson reminded him that lying under oath was a crime. They hired a lawyer named Marcus Flynn, a sharp-eyed man from Carson City with a reputation for winning impossible cases. He listened to their story, examined the evidence, and pronounced them likely to win. "Mrs. Coulter's case is weak," Flynn said. "She's relying on emotion and the testimony of a dead boy's family. We have multiple witnesses, a sheriff's report, and physical evidence of the attack. Unless the judge is corrupt or stupid, we should prevail." "And if he is," Clara asked, "then we appeal. But it won't come to that." 3 weeks later, they made the journey to Carson City. Jackson, Clara, Hope, Tom, and Flynn. Clara hated leaving the ranch unattended, but Henderson promised to keep an eye on it. The courthouse was imposing all stone and justice and judgments that could destroy lives with a single word. Clara held Hope close and tried not to show how terrified she was. Mrs. Coulter was there, dressed in black mourning clothes, dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. She was younger than Clara expected, maybe 40, and pretty in a hard way. When she saw Jackson, her expression turned to pure hatred. "Murderer," she hissed as they passed. Jackson didn't respond, just kept walking. The trial lasted 2 days. Worthington painted the Coulter brothers as innocent boys, led astray victims of a violent giant who'd attacked them without cause. Flynn countered with witness after witness, confirming the Coulters' attack. The cut fence, the rustled cattle, the bullets fired first by Cole Coulter himself. Clara testified about hearing gunfire, about treating Jackson's wound, about the fear of those days waiting for another attack. She kept her voice steady and her eyes on the judge, refusing to look at Mrs. Coulter's hateful stare. Tom testified about finding the cut fence, about tracking the rustlers, about the gunfight. Henderson and his men confirmed it all. Even Sheriff Dawson reluctantly admitted that the evidence supported Jackson's claim of self-defense. But the moment that decided everything came when Flynn called Timothy Coulter to the stand. The boy was 15 but looked younger, thin and pale and clearly uncomfortable. He testified that his brothers had talked about teaching Pike a lesson for humiliating Daniel, that they'd planned to scare Jackson, maybe rough him up a bit, that they'd never meant for anyone to die. "Did your brothers mention cutting Mr. Pike's fence?" Flynn asked. Timothy hesitated. "Yes, sir." "Did they mention stealing his cattle?" Another hesitation. "Yes, sir." "Did they say they were going to attack Mr. Pike's ranch?" Timothy looked at his aunt, then back at Flynn. "Yes, sir. They said they were going to make him pay, burn his house if they had to." Mrs. Coulter gasped. "Timothy, I'm sorry, Aunt Helen, but you told me to tell the truth. That's the truth." The judge banged his gavel. "Order. Mr. Coulter, did your brothers have a history of such activities?" Timothy's voice dropped to almost a whisper. "Yes, Your Honor. They stole cattle all over the territory. They said it was easier than working." The trial ended shortly after that. The judge deliberated for less than an hour before returning with his verdict. "In the matter of Coulter versus Pike, I find in favor of the defendant. Mr. Pike acted in lawful defense of his property and family. The wrongful death claim is dismissed with prejudice. Mrs. Coulter will pay all court costs. This case is closed." Clara sagged with relief so profound she nearly dropped Hope. Jackson pulled them both close, his hands shaking. "It's over," he whispered. "It's finally over." Mrs. Coulter left the courthouse spitting curses and threats, but they were empty now. She had no power over them anymore. On the ride home, Clara finally let herself believe they were safe. The ranch was theirs. Hope's inheritance was protected. They'd won. "What are you thinking about?" Jackson asked, noticing her smile. "That we survived. Everything they threw at us. The forced marriage, the rustlers, the birth, the lawsuit, we survived it all." "More than survived. We thrived." Jackson shifted Hope to his other arm. "We built something worth fighting for. We built a family. The best family in the entire territory." Tom snorted from behind them. "Y'all are getting sappy in your old age." "I'm 23, Clara protested. "And I'm 43, Jackson added. "That's not old. Old enough to know better, young enough to keep making the same mistakes anyway." Tom grinned. "But for what it's worth, boss ma'am, I'm glad you made those mistakes. This family is worth every scar we earned getting here." They were. God, they were. The months that followed were the happiest of Clara's life. Hope grew into a toddler, walking at 11 months and talking at 12, her father's pride and her mother's joy. The ranch prospered as beef prices rose, and Jackson's reputation as an honest man spread through the territory. They paid back Henderson's loan with interest, and still had money left over for luxuries they'd never been able to afford before. Clara sewed new curtains for the house, Jackson bought Tom a new saddle. They saved money for Hope's future education, determined she'd have opportunities they never had. On their second wedding anniversary, Jackson surprised Clara with a trip to town for a proper celebration. They left Hope with Tom, who'd become more grandfather than ranch hand, and had dinner at the hotel restaurant like civilized people instead of exhausted ranchers. 2 years, Jackson said, raising his glass. 2 years since the worst card game in history brought you into my life. Best worst thing that ever happened to either of us. Clara agreed, clinking her glass against his. Do you ever regret it? Marrying me. Clara had been asked this question before, but this time she had a different answer. Not even for a second, not even on the hard days. Especially not on the hard days. Why especially then? Because the hard days showed me what we're made of, what we can survive together. Any couple can be happy when life is easy, but we were happy even when life was trying to kill us. That's rare, Jackson. That's precious. Jackson reached across the table and took her hand. I love you, Clara Pike, more than I thought I could ever love anyone. You took a lonely giant and gave him a family, a home, a reason to wake up every morning grateful to be alive. You did the same for me, took a woman with no choices and gave her a life worth choosing. Thank you for that. Thank you for seeing me when everyone else just saw someone to pity. They walked home under stars as bright as broken glass, hand in hand talking about nothing and everything. When they arrived at the ranch, Tom met them on the porch. Hope's asleep, been out for 2 hours. Girl fights sleep like it's the enemy. Wonder where she gets that from, Jackson said, looking pointedly at Clara. From both of us, probably. Clara smiled. Thank you, Tom, for watching her, for staying, for everything. Tom ducked his head, embarrassed. Ain't no place I'd rather be, ma'am. Y'all are the closest thing to family I got left. Watching that little girl grow up, it's a privilege. After Tom left for the bunkhouse, Clara and Jackson checked on Hope. She slept sprawled across her small bed, one arm thrown over her head, her dark hair wild against the pillow. She looked like Jackson when she slept, peaceful and younger than her waking self. She's perfect, Clara whispered. She's ours. That automatically makes her perfect. They stood watching their daughter sleep, and Clara thought about how far they'd come. From a chapel full of pitying faces to a home full of love. From strangers forced together by circumstance to partners who'd chosen each other over and over again. Do you think she'll remember any of this when she's older? Clara asked. The struggle, the fear. I hope not. I hope all she remembers is being loved and safe and wanted every single day of her life. She'll know her parents fought for her, for each other, for this life we built. She'll know she comes from strength, yours and mine both. Jackson pulled Clara close, and someday when she's grown and has her own struggles, she'll remember that the Pikes don't quit. We fight, we survive, we endure. Clara rested her head against his chest and listened to his heartbeat, steady and strong and alive. I used to think strength meant never being afraid, never needing help, never showing weakness. And now I know real strength is being afraid and asking for help and showing weakness and doing what needs to be done anyway. Real strength is love, the kind that makes you braver than you knew Bimo could be. Jackson kissed the top of her head. You're the bravest person I've ever known. So are you. They stood there holding each other while their daughter slept, and the house creaked gently around them. And somewhere outside, Tom started whistling a tune that drifted through the night air like a blessing. This was their life now, not the one Clara had expected or the one Jackson had planned, but the one they'd built together from cards and desperation and stubborn refusal to accept defeat. The forced marriage had become a chosen partnership. The giant and the sparrow of Silver Ridge had become legends in their own right, not for their size difference or their unusual beginning, but for what they represented. Hope, resilience, love that conquered fear. People still talked about them in town, But now they spoke with respect instead of pity, admiration instead of mockery. The Pikes were proof that the worst beginnings could lead to the best endings if you had courage enough to fight for them. As Clara climbed into bed that night, Jackson beside her and Hope sleeping peacefully down the hall, she thought about that terrified girl who'd stood at an altar 3 years ago, certain she was marrying a monster. That girl couldn't have imagined this life, this love, this profound sense of belonging. "Thank you," Clara whispered into the darkness. "For what?" Jackson murmured sleepily. "For buying my uncle's debt, for forcing me to make a choice I didn't think I wanted, for being patient enough to let me fall in love with you in my own time." Jackson rolled to face her, his eyes catching the moonlight. "I should thank you for giving me a chance, for staying when you could have run, for choosing me every day even when I didn't deserve it. We deserved each other, that's what I finally understand. We both deserved someone who'd fight for us, stand with us, love us through the impossible. We deserved this family we built. Past tense, present tense, we deserve it now. We'll deserve it tomorrow. We'll deserve it for the rest of our lives." Clara touched his face in the darkness. "That's what I want Hope to understand when she's older, that she deserves to be fought for, that she deserves love that makes her braver, that she deserves someone who sees her, really sees her, and chooses her anyway. She will, because she's got the best example of that love right here." Jackson pulled Clara close. "Sleep now. Tomorrow's another day on the ranch, another day of our life together." Clara closed her eyes and let sleep take her, secure in the knowledge that tomorrow would come and they'd face it together, same as yesterday, same as today, same as all the tomorrows stretching out before them like an endless promise. Years later, when Hope was grown with children of her own, she'd ask her mother to tell her the story of how a terrified bride and a lonely giant became the family that couldn't be broken, and Clara would tell it honestly. The fear and the blood and the hard choices, the way love grew slow and steady instead of fast and easy, the way strength looked different than anyone expected, the way two broken people could build something whole if they refused to give up on each other. She'd tell Hope about standing on a porch with a pistol waiting for her husband to come home from a gunfight, about the young man she'd killed to protect her family, about nearly dying to bring hope into the world, about fighting a lawsuit that tried to steal their home. She'd tell all of it because Hope deserved to know the truth. That love, real love, lasting love, was earned through sacrifice and choice, and showing up even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. And Hope would understand, would carry that strength into her own life, would pass it down to her own children someday. The Pike legacy wasn't the ranch or the land or the cattle. It was this, the stubborn belief that love was worth fighting for, that family was chosen as much as made, and that the worst beginnings could transform into the most beautiful endings if you had courage enough to fight for them. Clara Pike had been bought with a card debt and forced into marriage, but she'd chosen love, chosen partnership, chosen to turn a prison into a paradise through nothing but will and heart and refusal to accept defeat. And that choice, that single terrifying choice to stay instead of run, to fight instead of surrender, to love instead of hate, that choice changed everything. For Clara, for Jackson, for Hope, for every generation of Pikes that would follow, this was their freedom, not from each other but with each other, not in solitude but in unity, not in surrender but in the daily choice to love harder than fear could break. And it was enough, more than enough. It was everything.